It was a warm evening in Los Angeles, the kind of evening where the sky glows orange and purple, and the city hums softly under the weight of its own chaos. People laughed over wine glasses and clinked forks against plates in a trendy outdoor restaurant on Melrose Avenue. Linen tablecloths, polished cutlery, candlelight flickering in tall glass holders, it all whispered money. At a corner table, alone but not lonely, sat a man in his early 30s. Clean-cut, dressed in a tailored chark, all suit, his watch gleamed with quiet wealth. His name was Julian Cross, a self-made millionaire in tech, known for his genius and his coldness. He had no entourage, no date, just a laptop beside his plate, and a glass of scotch in hand. He wasn't there to impress. He came because the food was good, and he liked being around noise he didn't have to participate in. That was when he noticed her. She was maybe 10. Then, her hair was tangled and her oversized t-shirt was stained with what looked like dried mud or ketchup, maybe both. Her pajama bottoms dragged against the concrete, worn through at the knees. No shoes. Her skin, the color of warm mahogany, was caked with city grime. But her eyes, they were alive, right, observing everything. And she was smiling. Julian watched her out of the corner of his eye as she passed by the other tables. Some guests ignored her, others shooed her away without making eye contact. She didn't beg, she didn't whine, she just kept walking, until she stopped at his table. "Hi," he said cheerfully. Julian looked up from his screen, one brow raised. "Hello." She pointed at the plate in front of him, a beautifully seared tuna steak with truffle potatoes and microgreens. "I want to buy your dinner," she said seriously. Julian blinked. "You want to buy my dinner?" She nodded, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a crumpled, dirty $1 bill. "I got money," she said proudly. "One whole dollar. You can keep the green stuff too." "I don't want that." He couldn't help the laugh that escaped his mouth. He thought it was a joke, some TikTok prank or something. But she wasn't laughing. She looked at him earnestly, her small hands holding the bill like it was a bar of gold. "You're serious?" he asked, straightening up. She nodded again. "I ain't eaten today, and I saw you weren't really eating the potatoes, so I thought maybe you're full." Julian looked at her again, really looked. The dirt under her fingernails, the way her ribs peeked through her shirt, the fact that her feet were blistered from walking on the hot pavement. This wasn't a joke. This was her life. "What's your name?" he asked, gently. "Naomi," she said, "but my dad used to call me Bud." He didn't ask about the dad. The way she said used to told him enough. He looked down at his half-eaten plate, then back at Naomi, and something cracked open in his chest, something unfamiliar. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it as compassion. "All right, Bug," he said, pushing the plate toward her. "You just bought yourself some dinner." She lit up like a Christmas tree, but instead of grabbing the food and running off, she stood still. "Can I eat here?" she asked, hesitant. "I mean only if I ain't bothering nobody." Julian looked around. The couple at the next table was already watching them, frowning. A waiter hovered nearby, clearly uncomfortable. "You can sit with me," Julian said firmly. Then to the waiter, "Bring her a plate. And a soda. Make it a Coke." The waiter hesitated. Julian added, "Put it all on my tab." Naomi climbed into the chair across from him like it was a throne. She picked up the fork carefully, like she didn't want to break it. She took a bite and her whole face lit up. "This tastes like magic," she said. Julian chuckled. "Where do you live?" he asked. "Sometimes behind the CVS. But the cops been mean lately, so I try to keep moving." He didn't know what to say to TH. They sat in silence for a bit, Naomi devouring the plate with the hunger of someone who learned never to waste a bite. Julian watched her, not with pity, but with confusion. How could someone so small, so abandoned by the world, still smile like that? She looked up mid-bite. "You rich, huh?" He shrugged. "I guess so." "Then why you eatin' all by yourself?" Julian was silent for a moment. "I don't know," he admitted. Naomi wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Well," she said, thoughtfully, "maybe you need a friend." He smiled for the first time in days. "Maybe I do." Michael watched the little girl dig through her ragged backpack. Her tiny fingers moved quickly, her brow furrowed with determination. She pulled out a crumpled dollar bill, holding it up to him with both hands like it was treasure. It was torn at the corner and stained with what looked like grease or maybe dirt, but she was proud of it. "I want to buy something to eat," she said again, standing tall as if she were negotiating a serious business deal. "I got money." The waiter glanced at Michael, unsure whether to shoo the girl away or wait for instructions. The other diners had begun whispering. One woman at the next table frowned and turned her chair away, muttering something about the city going downhill. But Michael didn't look away from the girl. She intrigued him. She wasn't begging. She wasn't whining or asking for pity. She was trying to make a transaction. "What's your name?" "At Amira," she replied, chin up. "What's yours?" He smiled. "Michael." She tilted her head. "That sounds like a rich name." He laughed, taken aback by her honesty. Maybe it is. Amira clutched her dollar tighter. I just want one of those chicken things. The spicy ones. She pointed at the table. Smells really good. Michael looked down at the half-eaten grilled chicken skewers in front of him, then glanced at the waiter. Can we get another plate of the chicken skewers? And a Coke? Right away, sir. Amira's eyes lit up. Wait, Coke. That's included? Michael nodded. You get the full package. She looked down at her dollar again, and hesitated. Do I give this to you? He shook his head. Keep it. Maybe for dessert later. No way, she gasped. That means I'm getting all this for free? Michael leaned forward. Let's say it's a tray. You sit and talk to me for a bit. She narrowed her eyes like she was suspicious. You're not a kidnapper, right? Odd again. Nope. Just bored. And you seem interesting. After a moment of hesitation, Amira climbed onto the chair across from him. Her clothes were so filthy that a few people visibly wrinkled their noses. Her oversized t-shirt had holes near the shoulders, and her sweatpants were stiff with dirt. Her shoes didn't match one sneaker, one plastic sandal. Still, she smiled like she didn't notice any of that. She grabbed the cloth napkin and began wiping her hands on it carefully. So what do? You do? You like sell gold or something? Michael shook his head. I own companies. Real estate, tech, finance stuff. That sounds boring. Sometimes it is. Amira giggled, her small shoulders relaxing now that food was coming. She pointed at the ring on his finger. Is that real? Yeah. Platinum. She whistled low. Then, the waiter brought out the fresh plate, steaming with grilled chicken and dipping sauce. Amira's eyes widened like she'd never seen that much food in one place. Her hands moved quickly, but not greedily. She picked up one skewer and took a slow bite. Oh my God, she whispered with her mouth full. This is amazing. Michael watched her eat, then asked, Where are your parents, Amira? She didn't stop chewing. Her eyes stayed on the food. Dunno. He waited. She finally swallowed. My mom left a few years ago. Said she'd be back. Didn't come back. And your dad? She shrugged. Used to drink. Got taken by the police one time. I think he's in jail. Michael's stomach tightened. She said it so casually, like it was just part of life. So where do you stay? Amira leaned back and wiped her mouth. There's this alley behind the laundromat on 4th. It's not too cold yet. I got 2 blankets. You sleep outside? She nodded. Sometimes in the church steps when it rains. He stared at her. 10 years old. Alone. Sleeping in alleys. Yet here she was, smiling and eating like it was a regular Tuesday. You go to school? She scoffed. Oh, address? No paperwork. Tried once. They sent me away cause I smell bad. Michael sighed. The city had hundreds of kids like her, but they rarely crossed his path. His world was boardrooms, luxury cars, high-rise condos, not alleyways and blankets. She finished a skewer and sat back. So why'd you help me? He paused. I don't know. You made me laugh, I guess. She beamed. I'm funny, huh? He nodded. Do something. Amira's smile faded a bit. You know what I want to be when I grow you. Do what? A lady who owns a bakery. Like, the kind where everything smells sweet and warm, and no one gets kicked out. Michael leaned forward. That's a beautiful dream. She shrugged again, like it wasn't anything special. A girl can dream, right? He looked at her, really looked. Underneath the grime, the mismatched clothes, the scruffy hair she had sparked, and courage, and something else he couldn't quite name. You're going to need help for that, he said carefully. Amira met his. I always do things by myself. Sometimes, he said, it's okay to let someone help. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but I still got my dollar. He chuckled. I think that dollar's got magic in it. She grinned. Then I'm rich too. Have you ever had a cheeseburger? He asked suddenly. The girl froze for a second, then shook her head. Only from the trash, she answered. Once. It was cold and had mold on it. He was still holding his wine glass midair, but he wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes darkened slightly, as if something inside him had shifted. He exhaled slowly, pushed back his chair, and stood up. Come on, he said, nodding toward the restaurant's counter. She hesitated, glancing around nervously. Really? He didn't explain. He just walked toward the front. The girl scrambled after him like a stray puppy, trying to keep up and not quite believing what was happening. He stopped in front of a waiter. Anything hot you can prepare quick. Why, he said. Include dessert. 2 of them. And bottled water. Free. The waiter looked confused for a second, glancing from the sharply dressed man to the disheveled child in a filthy pajama top and bare feet. But he nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. You don't look 10, the man said, turning back to her. I'm small, she replied, shrugging. My mom was small too, and my grandma, I think. But I don't remember her. Maybe she was huge and I just got swapped in the hospital. She smiled, revealing a gap between her front teeth. He smiled too, more gently this time. Where's your mom now? He asked. Dead, she said simply. I lived with my aunt after but she kicked me out. Said I was too loud when I coughed and I ate too much. But I was just hungry. Something tightened in his jaw, but he said nothing. I was sleeping behind the dumpsters for the last few days, she added. One night a cat tried to bite my ear. I think it thought I was food. The man didn't laugh. GH. Instead, he reached into his inner jacket pocket, took out his wallet, and pulled out a black business card. He knelt down and handed it to her. If anything happens, if someone tries to hurt you, if you're sick, you call the number on this card. Understand? She took it carefully, like it might burn her fingers. Her eyes scanned the glossy surface. No name, just a phone number and an address. I don't have a phone, she said. Doesn't matter, he replied. That address is a building downtown. There's always someone there. Always. She nodded slowly, though she clearly didn't understand all of it. The waiter returned a few minutes later, arms full of steaming food containers. The girl's eyes widened as he passed the boxes over the counter. The smell of warm bread, cheese, and something sweet filled the air. The man paid without glancing at the bill. Thank you, the girl whispered as he handed her the bag. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, long and quiet, like he was trying to figure something out. You have a name? He asked. Imani, she said. He raised an eyebrow. That's a strong name. It means faith, she nodded. My mom picked it. He paused again. All right, Imani, he said. Let's get you somewhere safe. Her whole body stiffened. You're not gonna take me to the cops, are you? She asked quietly. No, he said. Not unless you want me to. She shook her head fast. I don't want foster care. They're worse than the streets. He didn't argue. Instead, he started walking toward his car, and she followed, clutching the bag like it held treasure. In the back seat of the sleek, black vehicle, Imani sat with her legs tucked under her, staring out the window while wolfing down her first real meal in what felt like years. She ate fast, barely chewing, as if afraid someone would yank it away. He didn't speak. He sat in the front seat beside the driver, checking something on his phone, glancing in the rearview mirror. Very so often. When she opened the second dessert, her hands were trembling. Don't make yourself sick, he said softly. I'm okay, she mumbled through a mouthful of cake. This is the best day of my life. It was the way she said it, not with joy, but with disbelief, that broke something open in him. He had built empires, closed billion-dollar deals, had his name on buildings, but he'd never had someone look at him like that. Like he'd saved their entire world. The driver finally pulled up to a tall, modern building downtown. Gray stone, black steel, gold trim. The kind of building that made people on the sidewalk straighten their backs as they passed. Wait here, the man told her, and stepped out. She watched him talk to someone in the lobby. 2 minutes later, he opened the back door and nodded to her. Inside, everything smelled like fresh flowers and wood polish. A woman in a navy blue uniform smiled kindly at her. This is Mrs. Fields, the man said. Going to help you get cleaned up. Get some sleep. Imani took a step back. You're leaving? I have a meeting, he said, but I'll be back tomorrow. Oh, she looked down at her feet. Promise? I don't break promises. And then, something she hadn't expected, he crouched, placed a hand lightly on her shoulder and said, You're safe now. He stood and walked away. Imani didn't cry. Not yet. But as she followed Mrs. Fields down the hall to a warm bed and clean sheets, her grip on the food bag never loosened. She'd slept in trash bins and under stairs. She'd eaten rotten bread and fought raccoons for scraps. But tonight, someone had called her by her name. Someone had looked at her like she mattered. And that, more than the food or the soft pillow, was what made her feel full for the first time. The next morning, Henry sat in his car outside the hotel, engine idling. He had barely slept the night before. That little girl Marisol had lodged herself in his thoughts like a stubborn splinter. He kept picturing her small frame, her cracked hands, that ridiculous bright smile on her dirty face, and the way she had tried so hard to stay polite when her stomach was clearly begging for food. What kind of world did a child like that have to offer a whole $1 for half a sandwich? He slammed his hands against the steering wheel lightly and muttered, Damn it. He made a quick decision. Pulling out his phone, he searched through his messages until he found the number for Anthony, his driver. A few minutes later, Anthony pulled up in the black SUV, looking confused when Henry opened the back door and climbed in instead of taking the wheel of his own sports car. Where to, sir? Take me back to Market Street, that little alley behind the empanada place. Anthony raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask questions. Henry was glad for that. As they drove, he looked out the tinted windows, watching the early bustle of the city. People in suits rushed to offices, and in high heels balanced coffee and phones, and street vendors shouted about mango slices and tamales. Life moved forward, fast and unaware of children like Marisol. When they reached the corner where Henry had seen her the day before, he stepped out and scanned the alley. Nothing. Just piles of cardboard, a few rats scuttling under crates, and a group of homeless men huddled near a shopping cart, their faces worn and blank. He hesitated, then approached one of them. "Excuse me," he said, "A.W. or lie." One of the older men with yellowed eyes and a missing front tooth looked up. "You lost or something, boss?" "I'm looking for a little girl," Henry said. "About 10 years old, real skinny, dirty jeans, green shirt, smiles a lot." The man narrowed his eyes. "You a cop?" "No," Henry said quickly. "I might just talked to her yesterday. She said her name was Marisol." Another man chimed in. "Lil Marisol? Yeah, she hangs out here sometimes. Sells gum. Satanist too. Real sweet. Do you K? Now where she is now?" The first man shrugged. "She moves around a lot. Sleeps wherever she can. Might be by the bridge later today. She usually goes there to collect cans." Henry frowned. "Which bridge?" "Says Mary's overpass. By the canal." Henry gave them $100 bill without a word. Their eyes widened. He ignored their thank yous and headed back to the SUV. By the time they reached the bridge, the sun had climbed higher and the air was beginning to shimmer with heat. Henry stepped out and looked around. The area under the overpass was dark and dusty, littered with bottles, fast food wrappers, and crushed cans. The canal below trickled with dirty water. Then he saw her. She was squatting near a pile of garbage, sorting through plastic bottles. Her green shirt looked even filthier in the daylight, and her hair was matted to her forehead. But when she looked up and saw him, her face lit up. "You came back," she shouted, standing up. Henry felt a lump in his throat. Of course I did." She jogged over, cradling a plastic bag full of cans. "I made $3 already today. That's enough to buy a burger, right? I like the dollar menu burgers. They don't have lettuce, but they got ketchup." Henry looked down at her. Her sneakers were held together with duct tape, her knuckles scabbed over, and her lips dry, but she was smiling so white it almost hurt to look at. "Marisol," he said gently, "where are your parents?" Her smile faltered for a split second, just long enough for Henry to notice. "My mama went away," she said, "and my stepdaddy he left after she got sick. I live with my cousin sometimes, but he doesn't like when I stay too long. So I come out here." Henry crouched down to her level. "How long have you been living like this?" She shrugged. "A year, maybe more. I don't really keep track." That answer hit Henry harder than he expected. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Would you like to come with me? I can get you food. Real food. Hot shower. A clean bed." Marisol's eyes widened. "Like your house." He hesitated. "That wasn't the plan. Not yet. No, just for now. I have a friend who runs a safe place for kids like you. Would you trust me?" She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes narrowing, not suspicious, just calculating. Measuring risk, like a child who had to grow up way too fast. Then she gave a tiny nod. "Oh Pip, what can I keep my cans?" He laughed. "You can keep all the cans you want." As they drove away, Marisol in the back seat holding her bag like it was treasure, Henry felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Responsibility, maybe even purpose. He had spent years making money, climbing ladders, hosting galas. But this dirty little girl with spark in her eyes, this was the first thing that felt real in a long, long time. The next day, David arrived at the cafe earlier than usual. He didn't know why he felt so anxious. He had meetings later and an investor call that could determine the future of one of his companies. But none of that occupied his mind as much as the thought of whether or not Maya would show up again. He sat down at the same table, ordered a coffee, and glanced down the street every few seconds. She didn't come. Minutes ticked by. Half an hour passed. The waiter came to refill his coffee, but David just shook his head, distracted. He was about to leave when he saw a small figure walking slowly from around the corner. She was wearing the same oversized t-shirt, but someone had tried to wash it. It was still stained, but less grimy. Her jeans were soaked at the bottom from stepping in puddles, and she had new bruises on her elbow. But her face lit up when she saw him. "Hey," she said, running the last few steps. "You're late," he teased, hiding the strange relief in his chest. "I had to wait for the guy at the bakery to throw out the old bread," she said casually. "He doesn't like me digging before he's done. He says I make a mess." David's jaw clenched. He didn't comment. Instead, he pulled out a chair. "Sit. I already ordered hot chocolate and pancakes." Her eyes widened. "Pancakes? For real?" David nodded. "With syrup and butter. The good kind." She sat down fast, rubbing her hands on her jeans like it would somehow clean them. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while. Maya devoured the food, barely pausing to breathe. She didn't talk much that morning. She seemed tired. After a few minutes, David asked, gently, "Did you sleep okay?" She looked at him for a second, like deciding whether she could trust him. "Not really," she admitted. "It rained. My spot behind the supermarket got soaked, so I had to walk all the way to the park. But the benches there are metal and cold." David looked down at his hands. "Do you ever go to a shelter?" Sometimes, she said, chewing. But most of them only let adults in. Or they're full. Or they smell like pee. He exhaled. That's not okay. She shrugged. It's just normal. Normal. That word hit him like a punch. A few minutes passed before she looked at him and said, "Why are you so nice to me?" David blinked. No one's ever this nice. Not unless they want something. But you gave me pancakes. He chuckled softly. It's not that big a deal. It is to me, she said, serious. Yesterday I ate a hot dog someone dropped on the floor. Still had dirt on it, but I picked the dirt off. David swallowed hard. You shouldn't have to do that. Maya tilted her head. So why did you help me? David thought for a moment. Because I can. And because someone should. Most people don't. Then most people are wrong. She grinned. You talk fancy. Are you, like, rich or something? He smirked. Something like that. Maya leaned forward. Do you have a mansion? He laughed. No mansion. Just a normal house. With stairs. Yes. And a fridge? Of course. Full of food. He paused. Yes. Her voice got quiet. That must be amazing. David looked away, ashamed of the distance between their lives. The silence between them stretched. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, folded and crumpled. I drew this for you. He took it carefully. It was a pencil sketch of a man with messy hair and glasses, sitting at a table. Next to him was a girl, laughing, holding a fork. Above their heads was a big sun with a smiley face. I drew us having breakfast, she said shyly. David stared at the drawing for a long time, then looked at her. This is beautiful. She beamed. I love it. He folded it carefully and placed it in his wallet, next to his license. Wait, you're gonna keep it? She asked. Of course, he said. It's the best gift I've gotten in a long time. She blushed, looking down. Just then, his phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Investor call in 30 minutes. Are you on your way back? David sighed. I have to go soon. Maya nodded. It's okay. I know you're busy. Important people always are. He hesitated, then said, Can I see you tomorrow? Same time. She looked surprised. You want to? I do. Okay, she said, trying to sound casual, but her eyes shone. But I'm not sharing my pancakes next time. He laughed. Deal. She hopped down from the chair and gave a tiny wave. Bye, David. He watched her walk away down the street, small and alone but somehow radiating light. And for the first time in a long time, David felt like his day actually mattered. The little restaurant had fallen into a gentle quiet. Most of the evening guests had left, and only a few couples lingered over wine and conversation. The waitstaff cleared tables under the soft street lamps, their laughter quiet, unobtrusive. Mason sat across from Bella, a nearly untouched second plate of pasta in front of her. She'd eaten slowly, as if afraid to finish too quickly, savoring each bite like it was a treasure. Now, she was slouched in the chair with her hands on her stomach, visibly full, and for once, entirely still. She looked peaceful. Mason leaned forward slightly, studying her. So where do you go after this? He asked carefully. Bella blinked at him, her face still soft from the warmth of food and safety. There's a place behind the car wash on 3rd. They let me sleep there if I don't bother anyone. I got a little blanket hidden in a bag so it don't get wet. Mason paused. You sleep behind a car wash? Sometimes, she nodded. Sometimes under the bridge on Maxwell if it's raining. But that's loud cause of the cars and the drunk people. Once a man kicked me cause he thought I was trash. There was no bitterness in her voice, just matter-of-factness. He felt his chest tighten. And your parents? Anyone looking for you? Bella scratched her arm absently. Don't think so. My mama, she used to get real mad. Said I was always in the way. One day she just didn't come back. I Ted for 2 days. Then I left too. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. A 10-year-old just out here. Do you go to school? She shrugged. No, I tried once. But you need papers and an address and stuff. And the other kids laughed at me. Pause, I smell. Mason felt a deep shame. He had built billion-dollar companies, advised world governments on tech policy, donated to charity galas, but he had never, not once, looked directly into the eyes of someone like Bella. Not like this. And he was right here, in his city. Would you? He hesitated. Would you let me help you? She looked at him, suspicious now. You mean like give me money? No, he said gently. Not like that. I mean maybe we can find a place for you to stay. A real bed, clean clothes, a school, maybe, somewhere warm. Bella narrowed her eyes. What? Why would you do that? Mason paused. Because I can. She considered that. People don't do nice things for no reason. He gave her a small, sad smile. You're not wrong. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a small card. This is my assistant's number. Her name's Rachel. She's the nicest person I know. If you ever need anything, you call her. Bella took the card delicately, like it might vanish. You don't want to keep me? She asked suddenly. He blinked. What? She bit her lip. Rich people sometimes they keep pets, like a dog or something. I thought maybe you'd want to keep me, 'cause I'm small and funny, and I eat qua. Tia, his throat tightened. Bella, I don't want to keep you. I want to help you. There's a difference. They sat in silence for a moment. Then, softly, she asked, would I get to wear shoes that match? Mason chuckled gently. You could even pick the color. Red, she said instantly. Right, red. He nodded. Deal. She looked down at the table. What if they send me to one of those places, with other kids? But mean ones. I've been to one. They hit me there. Mason leaned forward. Then we'll find a better place. I promise. But not tonight. Tonight, you come with me. Her eyes widened. To my apartment, he added quickly. Not to stay forever, just for one night. You'll have a bed, and a bath, and tomorrow we'll figure it out. Together. Bella hesitated. You got toys? He laughed. No, but I think we can fix that. She stood up, brushing imaginary crumbs from her filthy skirt. Okay, then. But I get to sit in the front seat. You drive a hard bargain. As they walked toward his parked car, Bella held the card tightly in her small hand. She looked up at the sky, whispered something to herself, then looked back at Mason. Hey, She pointed to the stars. Think they ever look down and laugh? Like you did? Before you knew I was serious. Mason swallowed hard. No, Bella, I think they cry. But maybe they'll smile again soon. She considered that. Good, she said. They'd been crying long enough. Together, they crossed the quiet street. Tea under the warm glow of the street lamps, a man in a tailored coat and a little girl in torn sandals, and hope in her eyes. The next few days passed like a quiet miracle. David kept his distance at first, unsure how much was too much for a child like Marisol. He made arrangements discreetly, booked her a hotel room for the week, and paid a trusted staff member, Mrs. Hotel, to watch over her. He didn't want to scare her off by being too involved too soon. But Marisol, she didn't run. She'd stay. She played with his soft hotel slippers like they were treasure, slept curled in a warm bed with a real blanket, and ate more in 2 days than she probably had in the last 2 weeks. The staff quickly grew attached to her. Even the grumpy valet cracked a smile when she ran down the lobby hallway one morning with her shoes on the wrong feet, chasing a balloon. But Marisol was still quiet. At dinner one night, David sat with her at the small private restaurant in the hotel. She wore a clean skirt that was still a little too big, and her hair had finally been brushed, though it stuck out in every direction like a wild little halo. He ordered her spaghetti and meatballs. She poked at it. You don't like spaghetti? He asked, trying not to sound disappointed. I like it, she said, voice small. I'm just scared I'll eat too fast and it'll be gone. David blinked. That hit him in the gut. You can always ask for more, Marisol, as much as you want. She nodded, though she didn't look convinced. Halfway through the meal, she looked up at him and said, Are you gonna give me back? He froze. Give you back? To the street. Like after the hotel. Or if I do something wrong. No, he said firmly, setting down his fork. No, I'm not. She didn't seem reassured. Other people have. David sat in silence. His mind flashed through cold boardrooms and fake smiles, deals he'd cut with people who didn't give a damn about anyone but themselves. The way the world treated poor, not as people, but as burdens, mistakes, afterthoughts. I don't want you to go back to the street, he said carefully. Not ever. I want to help. If you'll let me. She looked at him like he'd said something in another language. What? He smiled. Because you walked up to me with $1 and tried to buy a meal. You smiled like the world hadn't beaten you yet. And because I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. Marisol blinked quickly. She picked up a meatball with her fork and stuffed it in her mouth to avoid saying anything else. But he saw the way her eyes glistened. She didn't cry, not exactly, but she was close. That night, David called his lawyer. I need to know how guardianship works, he said. You're not married, and the child isn't a relative. It'll take time, David. Then start now. He didn't know what he was doing. Not really. But he knew he couldn't just feed her and walk away. The next morning, he took Marisol shopping. At first, she refused to enter the store. I'm too dirty, she whispered. David crouched down beside her. You're not dirty, and even if you are, who cares? It's just dirt. We'll clean it off. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. She walked in holding his hand tightly, like she thought the floor might vanish beneath her. The saleswoman's expression changed when she saw Marisol. A flicker of judgment, a wrinkle of her nose. David saw it, and he stared right back. Anything she wants, he told the woman coldly. Top brands, new shoes, pajamas, school clothes. He said it loud enough that the woman couldn't pretend not to hear. She nodded quickly and led Marisol toward the children's section. David waited, watching as Marisol gently touched a red dress, then glanced at the price tag and pulled her hand back. He walked over and picked up the dress. Try it on. I can't. It's too much. You let me decide that, he said gently. She looked up at him, unsure, but and took the dress with trembling hands and followed the saleswoman. When she came out of the fitting room, David had to blink. It wasn't that the dress made her look different. It was the way she stood, like someone who almost believed she was allowed to stand tall. He nodded. "We'll take 5 more just like that." Marisol grinned. They returned to the hotel with shopping bags, and Marisol twirled in front of the mirror, then flopped dramatically onto the bed with a laugh that didn't sound hollow anymore. That night, David sat at the small writing desk and opened his laptop. He didn't sleep much. Instead, he drafted emails, called connections, and made arrangements. He needed to find her birth records, a school that would accept her, a therapist who understood street kids, a pediatrician who didn't ask questions with raised eyebrows. He wasn't just trying to be her savior. He was trying to be her family. When he finally closed the laptop and turned to check on her, Marisol was curled up in bed, one leg hanging out from under the blanket, clutching a stuffed bear someone at the store had offered her. Her thumb was in her mouth. She looked small again, but David saw something new too, the beginnings of safety. And that night, for the first time in years, he fell asleep with a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with money, mergers, or markets. It had to do with a little girl who once offered him $1 and gave him back something priceless. The next morning, the sun filtered softly through the hotel curtains, casting warm streaks of light across Marisol's face. She was still curled up under the heavy blanket, her breathing slow and steady, finally relaxed in a way she hadn't been for years. David sat quietly by the window, sipping his coffee, watching her. His mind was already racing with plans, meetings with social workers, calls to schools, arrangements for legal paperwork. But for now, he just let the moment breathe. After a while, Marisol stirred and opened her eyes slowly. She looked around, confused for a moment, then smiled softly when she saw David. "Good morning," he said gently. "Morning," she whispered, sitting up and hugging the bear tightly. David smiled back. "Did you sleep okay?" She nodded. "Yes, it was warm. I liked it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marisol looked down at the bear and whispered, "Thank you for buying this." David nodded. "It's yours." Her eyes shone with something live. "You wonder, you really mean it?" "I do." That day, David took her to a local community center. He'd arranged for Marisol to meet with a counselor who specialized in helping children who had experienced homelessness and trauma. The counselor, a kind woman named Lisa, greeted them warmly and spoke to Marisol with gentle patience. David waited outside as they talked, his heart pounding. He wanted to be strong for Marisol, but he couldn't shake the fear of the unknown. Would she trust them? Well, did she heal, or would the world she had known for so long drag her back into the darkness? When Lisa came out, she smiled reassuringly. "She is strong. It will take time, but she's willing to try." David exhaled, relief washing over him. Over the next few weeks, life began to settle into a new rhythm. Marisol attended school for the first time in years. She was shy but curious, slowly making friends. David made sure she had clothes, school supplies, and most importantly, a safe home. Every evening, they would share simple dinners and talk quietly about the day. Marisol asked questions, some innocent, some startlingly insightful for her age. She wanted to know about the world beyond the streets, about stars and oceans and what it meant to have a family. David found himself opening up too, sharing stories from his childhood and the lessons he'd learned. He realized that this little girl was not just healing, she was healing him. One night, as they sat together reading a book, Marisol looked up and said softly, "Thank you, David, for not giving up on me." He smiled, his eyes warm. "I never will." Weeks passed, and Marisol's transformation became more and more evident. The timid, cautious girl who had once feared every shadow was slowly blossoming into a confident child with a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her laughter came more often now, genuine and light, and she even started to speak about her dreams, simple things like wanting to learn to swim or to paint. David watched all this with a mixture of pride and humility. Despite his wealth and success, this was a new kind of achievement, one that touched his heart deeper than any business deal ever could. One afternoon, after school, Marisol came home beaming, clutching a colorful piece of paper. "Look," she exclaimed, holding it out to David. It was a drawing, a bright, messy portrait of a sunny day, with 2 figures holding hands beneath a huge shining sun. "That's us," she said shyly. "I drew us." David smiled, kneeling down to her level. "It's beautiful." She grinned. "My teacher said I'm good at art now." "That's amazing," he said, ruffling her hair gently. But amidst the progress, challenges remained. Marisol still had moments of fear and mistrust. Sometimes she'd disappear for hours, retreating into herself. David learned to be patient, to give her space, but always be ready to catch her if she fell. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset from his apartment balcony, Marisol asked quietly, "Do you think my mom ever thinks about me?" David felt a pang in his chest. "I don't know, Marisol." But I do know that you're not alone anymore. She looked up at him, searching his eyes. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Tears welled in her eyes, and she threw her arms around him. For the first time, David felt the weight of responsibility mixed with the warmth of love. He whispered softly, "We'll get through this together." Months passed, and Marisol's life began to take on a new shape, a life filled with hope, stability, and the kind of love she had never known before. The little girl who once wandered the streets in tattered clothes was now thriving, excelling in school, making friends, and even joining a local art club. David had become not just her guardian but her family. He adjusted his busy life to make room for her, attending parent-teacher meetings, sitting through school plays, and spending weekends exploring parks and museums. The city no longer felt cold and unwelcoming. Through Marisol's eyes, it shimmered with possibility. One crisp autumn afternoon, David and Marisol sat in the park, watching the leaves fall in golden waves. She pulled out a small sketchbook and handed it to him. "I made this for you," she said, cheeks flushed with excitement. He flipped through the pages, drawings of their adventures, visits to the zoo, lazy afternoons in the sun, the two of them baking in the kitchen. David smiled, overwhelmed by the journey they'd shared. "You've given me a new life, Marisol," he said softly, "and you've changed mine too." Marisol smiled back, her eyes shining. "You saved me, but you also saved yourself." For the first time since they met, both felt truly whole. Though the past shadows still lingered, they no longer defined her. Together, they looked forward to a future filled with endless possibilities, love, and hope.